Since electricity was first turned on at Yallourn in 1924, the Latrobe Valley was transformed from a series of small towns serving surrounding farming communities to what it has become, the power hub of Victoria. And in the process, it provided the impetus for a thriving economy based on manufacturing and industry. And it was part of the attraction for hundreds of thousands of people to migrate to Australia, many of whom settled in the Latrobe Valley to work at the open cut mines, the power stations and associated industries. A few years ago, I had the privilege as Immigration Minister to unveil a monument to these pioneers at Morwell. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a chapter of the modern Australian story. It was repeated at many places, including in the Hunter and Illawarra regions of New South Wales and elsewhere. It is a story of how the ready availability of cheap energy has transformed the world, lifting people out of poverty and generating economic activity that has raised the standards of living for millions of people. But it's not just a story of economic achievement. It's a story of people's lives, growing communities and national prosperity. It is a reflection that with prosperity, hard-working people from all parts of the globe can live and thrive together. But ladies and gentlemen, all of this is at stake. Not because the coal is running out, not because people no longer wish to work, not because there is any diminishing need for electricity. The contrary of all of these things is true. It is at stake because of a poisonous ideology that has captured some of the political elite, including the current government in Australia, and threatens to wreak havoc on our national prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, individually and collectively, the authors of this book reveal the totalitarian impulse at the heart of the Greens ideology. It involves the control over and the crowding out of other spheres of national life by the massive expansion of government. Two recent events underline this point. First, Bob Brown advocated a world government in his remarks at the National Press Club. As Ted Lapkin observes, this would involve the extinguishment of national sovereignty at the hands of an expanded United Nations. As I noted in my essay last year, the expansion of international regulatory bodies is central to the worldwide Greens movement, who talk of democracy but advocate for a ruling elite. Since then, Bob Brown has proposed the licensing of the press in this country, with proprietors and others having to pass a fit and proper person test before they could publish. The reason? Ostensibly because of unrelated hacking incidents at a British newspaper some years ago. But more likely, I believe, because Brown and his ilk dislike the critical scrutiny that belatedly is being applied to their policies and their proposals. The fact that the Prime Minister seriously considered the idea illustrates the extent to which the Greens have been able to press their radical agenda. And the fact that we are seriously considering closing a power station that produces a quarter of Victoria's power without identifying a practical, affordable, efficient and timely means of replacing the baseload energy that it produces also demonstrates or illustrates how far the unreal world of the Greens has captured public policy. Ladies and gentlemen, this book is a welcome antidote to the poisonous policies of the Greens. It deserves readership from every Australian who is concerned about the future of this nation. It won't be the last word on the subject as more and more of the Greens' proposals are exposed, but it is an important analysis of many of the Greens' ideas. So may I congratulate the editor, Andrew McIntyre, and the other contributors. May I commend Connor Court for publishing it. I hope it enjoys wide readership, and I have much pleasure in declaring it officially launched.
I think a lot of people who vote Green, certainly they're middle class, often wealthy people who are concerned for the environment, and they don't realise that the Greens policies run right across a whole range of areas, including immigration, refugees, the United Nations, security, the military, agriculture, housing and education. So it's a very wide-ranging set of policies, and I think genuinely that people who vote Green just feel that they're for the environment.
They want to do away with our right to govern ourselves by creating a global government that will allow people on the other side of the world to tell us what to do. And we won't have the right to make decisions for ourselves. I wrote the chapter on defense and foreign affairs, and the primary focus of the book was on the complete utopian lack of reality of the Greens' policies. And when it comes to defense and foreign affairs, they're downright dangerous because they would weaken Australia's national defenses. They would subordinate Australia's national sovereignty to the United Nations. And they seem to be speaking language, they use the terminology of self-determination, that if you look at the Oxford English Dictionary definition, would seem to indicate that they support the territorial secession of part of Australia in order to create a new sovereign independent territory. So there's a conflict between what they're saying. When it comes to indigenous matters, they talk about self-determination, which seems to me to indicate, as I said, territorial secession and the creation of a new independent country. But on the other hand, they don't support Australian national sovereignty, and they want to subordinate that to the United Nations. So it's just a bizarre, self-contradictory melange of policies.
Well, looking at the energy aspects of the Greens' policies and trying to dissect them and figure out what they're going to cost the Australian community, and the answer is they're going to cost a packet. Well, basically they want to remove the existing industrial energy that we have based on coal, based on gas, and replaced it by energy based on wind and solar. And that energy is 4 or 5 times as expensive as the fossil fuel-based energy, even if it works, and it may well not work. It would mean a total industrial transformation in a negative sense for Australia. Essentially what the alternative to our present energy system is something which would be 4 or 5 times as expensive. It would mean the end of smelting industries. It would mean colossal costs on all industries which compete with industries overseas. And it will mean, of course, a very high cost, direct cost in terms of electricity and gas charges to the individual Australian household. And bear in mind, no other country has a tax like this.